So have you ever noticed how we get activated when something that we have such a high expectation for in our lives doesn't come about, or that certain someone says something to us that we didn't expect to hear? Or we get activated because maybe we show up to a Sunday or a Wednesday service and there's something in the message that reminds us or points out to us that quite possibly we've been entertaining ideas of not enough or ideas of maybe less than. But whatever gets our attention ultimately has the potential within us to get us activated. And so the topic of truth that I want to talk about tonight is getting activated. Now, getting activated can mean so many things, but what I want to talk about specifically tonight is how do the emotions play into how we experience life, how we make quality decisions, and then how we go about making necessary changes in our life with corresponding actions so that we can actually reach our goals, our dreams, and our desires. And I think it's really important to understand emotions because Ernest Holmes, believe it or not, wrote extensively about this subjective minefield through which all of our experience comes through and ultimately returns back into. So I know in our classes we teach that when Ernest was writing The Science of Mind that there wasn't a language to talk about emotions, except for the fact that in the textbook it's listed 114 times, the word emotions. And so that's mostly true, not completely. Except because Ernest Holmes hung out with all the leading psychologists of the day. Remember, when he wrote The Science of Mind, psychology was just, like Freud was out, Alder, right? There's all these great, Jung was out, and he hung out with all these people. So really what he did is he produced his scientific opinion in a text that he called The Science of Mind and Spirit. So he did have his own opinions about emotions. He wrote chapters on mental equivalence. He wrote chapters on principles of successful living. He wrote chapters on finding the Christ, and all of these chapters show us how to get activated in our own lives so that we can take the helm of success and steer this ship of dreams of ours towards these great horizons of the greater yet to be's that are sitting in front of us, just waiting for us. Ernest says we want to be activated through the use of the science of mind, which shows us how to be active and creative citizens in a universe and innerverse, he says, that is richer than any of our previous imaginings. So Science of Mind possesses some of the greatest psychologies all mixed together. It has what psychology started with, which was basic psychology, but now has become the basicality debate, which says that things move toward pleasure to avoid pain. It has evolutionary psychology, which shows that the basic instincts of man respond to his environment and the actions of that environment around him, and that if his offspring is not taught differently, his offspring will follow the same pathway. It has dimensional psychology in it. Not demented psychology, but dimensional psychology, where each individual moves through dimensions within the various elements that drive his emotional states of being and is said to have altered states of emotional being when he or her has a changed thought process. And then we've heard the illustrious Dr. Mark Vieira up here on Sunday teach us that basically there are two reasons we do everything: to avoid pain or to feel pleasure. We teach that activation of an emotion such as anger or sadness or some fear, that they get triggered by an activity in the mind, and that activity occurs within the subjective. And that trigger happens because of the way our brains see whatever situation or event or circumstance or experience in life that we're currently having. It appraises that situation. It calculates a decision. That decision drops into our subjective mind, where a decision now is made for a course of action, which could be consciously or unconsciously that it takes place, right? And once that decision is made, it drops back into the subjective, where it gathers all the evidence of similarity, where we've had similar emotional states, and then obviously we have the same experience in life over and over and over again in the world. So the piece that I want to bring to this conversation tonight that's a little different is that there are three basic elements to the process of evolution and the establishment of our emotions, and they are realization, revelation, and activation. And so what I want you to remember tonight, if you remember anything, and please remember this, it's the most important thing I'm going to say, is that God gives to us by means of ideas, and within that idea is everything necessary for that idea to come into fruition in our lives. So we talk about the universe being a fluidic creation, that it has a creative ability, and because of that fluidic ability, or its creative ability or flexibility, the moment an idea drops into our cognitive mind, our mind goes about trying to make that thing come into reality for us, either for what? To give us pleasure, or just our basic survival, I think. Why? Because contained within the idea is everything necessary for that idea to come into being for us. So all of psychology splits up. Even the science of mind, it splits up the activation and the experience into two elements of investigation, and they are the cause and the effect. Ernest Holmes did it, and all the New Thought writers did it. And what I want to say about that is this is the most generalized view, or this is the most broad stroke look at consciousness. But as we narrow that view and we begin to focus in, we can see that we can further understand the development of our emotions simply by asking a few questions. Is this pleasurable or unpleasurable? Is this arousing or subduing? Is this relaxation, or is this strain? You see, and any time that we have a realization that we're in an event or a circumstance or an experience in our life, and we move from one emotional state of being to another, you know, it's really not uncommon for us to say that we've entered a new dimension in our life, is it? When we move from being totally enraged by something and then being totally harmonious, people go, "What happened to you, man? You were so mad yesterday." "Oh, I entered a new dimension. I'm in a new dimension in my life." So when we spiritually, so I think in the realm of absolute, actually, within the spiritual emotions, all of our work is analyzed by two filters. Am I living in fear, or am I living by faith? So spiritually, when we discover which of these two are in operation within our experiences and expressions, both our emotional and mental states, as well as the ensuing manifestation, that's when we say that we've gained knowledge. And if you were here last time that I spoke on the Wednesday, I talked about the three causes of action, and one of them is knowledge. Next week, I'm going to continue this topic, I think, because I speak next week as well. And what I'll do is I'll finish this topic on realization, revelation, and activation, and then I will marry the East and the West and bring all of that wisdom back together for us and wrap it up with a nice little bow. Because I think we want to get activated in this science of mind beyond just the use of the law. That we also actually want to open up a way for love to pour forth from us. That's what Joanne was singing about. See, because we know when love has activated us. And if you don't, this is the way Ernest Holmes says you can define that. It says, when we are definitely, constructively, actively stating, actively sensing, actively knowing some specific good, but he says that this good must be in accord with the principle with which we wish to demonstrate. So there are elements to the use of every principle, and each principle has a specific area of our life that it has dominion over. And so the way that we learn to actually use which principle in our life to have, that's why they call them principles of successful living. So when we learn how to put that principle into use, to activate it and utilize it in our life, right, we get fed, famous, fondled, and financed, I think is what Dr. Mark says. But these principles use what's necessary within us for that specific thing. Every principle is specific. So we get clearer and clearer as we grow and relax into the loving embrace of the divine. And what I say that embrace is actually the outstretching of each principle and us activating that principle and utilizing it, and then seeing that the universe is actually supporting us by this principle. So the embrace of the divine is our active use of the principles. So what the Science of Mind does for me is it organizes all that knowledge, all that specific instruction that comes with the revelation into a workable system that not only advances me along my path of discovery, but if I actually adhere to those instructions, it removes from my path any unnecessary blocks or any obstructions or obstacles, and inevitably reveals to me the inherent good that was already present for me if I would have just seen it. The first step is for me to realize, oh, it's me. I'm the one having this experience, right? That modern psychology and the Science of Mind, they affirm that all the thoughts and all the emotions that we have experienced since we came into this conscious existence through this cognitive mind that we have, right? That all of this stuff within there, all of these experiences and all these emotions, they're already still laying within our mind. They reside there, ceaselessly active. And what Ernest Holmes says is they manifest themselves as subjective tendencies that mold the body. Ernest is saying this, that these tendencies mold the body into sickness or in health, as well as all of our reactions to all of life and all of our experiences. And that's why it's so easy, I think, to get emotionally activated. I mean, think about it. Have your eyes ever welled up when you're watching a movie? Welled up with tears, you're watching a movie, there's no apparent flow in the plot, and there's no reason for you to be having tears streaming down your eyes, but something gets activated within us. What is it? It's something within the subjective gets activated within us, and a physical demonstration occurs. That's simple. If we want to reach our goals and our dreams, getting emotionally activated influences our memory. Because if we don't have much charge about a thing, if we don't have much inspiration, that's why I like you to stand up and really get activated and to scream out your affirmations and to get your body involved, because there needs to be an emotional charge there. Ernest says that feeling is intelligently directed creation. So we want to be in charge of what we're feeling and how we emote that energy in our bodies and through them and back out into the world of our affairs. You know, Dr. Mark said one Sunday, he said, I am the common denominator in all of my experiences of life, even in my thinking, because I'm the one doing the thinking for me. It's like, hello. Imagine, I never had heard that before. But as soon as I realized what dropped in, the revelation, the perfect set of instructions, and it doesn't matter how simple or how, whatever we want to, difficult those instructions are, it exposes all the limitless possibilities within that revelation. So as soon as I become aware of the voice of God within, in the blink of an eye, actually 2 weeks ago, it was in the twinkling of an eye. And that quick, along with the realization comes the revelation. And contained within the revelation is the perfect set of instructions for success, as well as the inevitable outcome if we don't heed the instruction. So we know when we're not following our best inner guidance, don't we? Spirit shows us inevitably at each twist and turn in the road that there's always more than one way to go. There's always more than one option. And if we look closely and we look correctly and we put on those glasses of clearer vision, we will walk proudly toward our dreams and boldly, unobstructed by the imaginings of our minds. You see, just like there's two sides to every coin, though, there are two sides to every revelation that we get. And they are inspiration and exasperation. And you know, by the experience you're having today, which one of those elements you're demonstrating, don't you? Whew. But these are the two ways that we lay hold of the world around us and we perceive the world around us. Because I believe we want to be excited about life. Because when we're excited about life, we'll be inspired to move forward, to reach our dreams and reach our goals. And that inspiration, that's our enthusiasm. And in case you don't know what the definition of enthusiasm is, it means simply to be inspired or possessed by a God, to be rapt, to be in ecstasy. We want to be in ecstasy over everything in our life. After all, like creates like. I got a reminder for you. Anybody, and here's another one. Ouch. If you weren't here on a Sunday, you missed a good talk by Dr. Mark. So one day I was standing on this road, and you know the road that's known by many names. It's life and its growth and its achievement and its faith and its happiness and its success. And I was just standing there looking up at this path that I have to go. And as I'm looking, I started seeing something. And the more I looked at it, the bigger this thing got. I mean, this thing was freaking huge. It got so big in my mind. It was mean looking. It was a big, huge, scary bull. And the bull was blocking my path. Yet I knew for me to get to go where I wanted to go, to reach my goals, I was going to have to get past this big, scary bull. And I got to tell you, just the thought of overcoming the bull scared me to death. You know, so for a long time, I stood there, just looking, frozen. Maybe you've done this before. I stood there looking, frozen in my ambition, just hoping and praying that somehow, magically, this thing would like move off my path so I could keep going along the path where I needed to go. But nothing happened. Nothing changed, except for I heard a very distant voice. And that voice came from somewhere within me. And I was listening to this voice and I thought, oh my God, what's going on? And what the voice said was, it whispered to me. It said, do whatever you gotta do to get to wherever you're going. Well, I'm not a very quiet guy. I said, what? You're kidding me. Do whatever I gotta do to get to where I'm going. Are you crazy? That's a big bull up there. But I realized, you know, I had to make my mind up. If I was going to get there, I had to choose. So I said, okay, no matter what, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to suffer through whatever consequences come to me, good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter to me. So what I did was I mustered up all the courage I could, and I took a big, deep breath. And I charged up that hill, and I grabbed that bull by the horns, and I exclaimed to that bull, you're going to move off of this path, or you and me, we're going to fight. Which is it? Well, you know that bull did the craziest darn thing? It sat down right there on the road. It sighed, and it said to me, what took you so long getting here? I've been standing here waiting to give you a ride. hop up on my back and tell me where it is you would like to go. What I thought was such an insurmountable problem in my mind turned out to be a great blessing. And all that I needed to discover that was the willingness to see the blessing in whatever was going on at the time. So instead of getting activated through fear, we can choose faith. See, all we have to remember is that there's never a challenge that's too big for us. And there's never a goal that's outside of our reach. We're all heading towards something. And the science of mind and psychology all say that we're heading towards avoiding pain so that we can feel pleasure. But we get to choose. See, once we have the realization that it's you and that it's me, that it's us right here in the midst of this, having this experience, and we realize as well the inevitable outcome based upon the choices that we're going to make, which approach we're going to take. Do we desire that pleasure? Do we desire that joyful experience of knowing that we're one with life and that love is all around us and moving through us? Or are we approaching everything from that place, believing through an inner verse that's out to get us? Yes, an inner verse, because the universe must only be for our good. So we don't change the universe, we alter our inner verse. Remember, I quoted earlier Ernest Holmes, and he said, we want to be activated through the use of the science of mind, which shows us how to be active and creative citizens in a universe and inner verse richer than all of our previous imaginings. Let's turn to that now.